And after that, here Kasparov goes for g3, opening this g2 square for this knight. But guys, instead of g3, it's better for white to capture this bishop by knight takes g6. But after h takes g6, some of you might be worried about this open h file. But guys, there is nothing really black can do to attack the white king. That's because first of all, white will calmly brings his bishop back to e2, creating a solid defense and cutting off any potential counterplay. And since this queen is attacking this b7 pawn, so black is now forced to guard this pawn, and the best way is queen to c7. But now comes g3, potentially opening this diagonal for this light square bishop. And let's suppose if black decides to castle long side, preparing for the move rook to h7 and then rook to h8. Then now comes bishop to f3, preparing for the move e4, taking complete control over the center. And if black moves according to his plan by rook to h7, e4, okay, rook at d goes to h8, but finally h4. And now clearly you can see how white successfully neutralized the black attack. Because tell me, how can black attack in this position? Obviously, black cannot push g5 due to the threat of bishop takes g5, as the h file is already blocked by these pawns. Whereas this position is winning for white due to these advanced pawn and these two sniper bishops, which can become aggressive anytime. Okay, so in the actual game, after the move g3, and clearly you can see by this move black wants to activate his queen. But here Kasparov finds the best move, bishop to f1, preparing for bishop g2 so that he can push d5. Okay, so after that here Alexander goes for bishop to f8, which is also fine. But guys, the move e4 might be the best option for black, cutting this diagonal completely. Okay, so now queen to b8 by Alexander, preparing for queen a7 so that he can keep an eye over this central pawn. And after that, queen to c2, a good move by Kasparov, stopping this pawn from pushing further. And now white is preparing to push this d pawn forward, and the best way to continue this game by capturing this pawn on d4. This is because suppose if takes, now comes knight to b6, and since black can at any time go for queen to d6, which will target this isolated d4 pawn. So to stop this, white can go for knight to e4, but after that knight takes e4, bishop takes e4, and as you can see, now white is creating multiple threats like bishop to f4, which will attack this queen, and white can also bring this bishop to f5, attacking this isolated pawn. But black can tackle this by playing g6, which stops the move bishop to f5, and after that simply bishop to f4, attacking this queen, but simply queen to d8. And let's suppose if white push this pawn further, knight takes d5, bishop takes d5, c takes d5, and now clearly you can see black successfully neutralized the white attack. But in the actual game, after the move queen to c2, here black missed that amazing move, and instead he go for queen to a7, allowing white to push d5. A good move by Alexander guarding this a5 pawn as well as opening this b7 square for this queen. And after that, here Kasparov goes for a weird move g4, which looks weird at first time, but why he was doing this? Because this knight can easily capture this pawn by knight takes g4. But guys, this actually happens in the game, and that's what Kasparov wants. Basically, he wants to deflect this knight from this f6 square so that he can place this rook on d7, attacking this f7 pawn. But guys, unknowingly, this move also opens the d5 square for this bishop, which will target this rook as well as this pawn. But Kasparov didn't go for this. He might have calculated this move so that he can play it later. But before that, he brings his rook to d7, attacking this e7 pawn, and to defend this, here black brings his knight back to h6, and finally he goes for bishop to d5 as I mentioned, attacking this rook as well as this pawn on f3. And now here black can push this pawn to e4, but instead he goes for And after that, here black made a mistake by bringing this bishop back to d6, removing all the pressure from this bishop. Instead, he must consider the move rook to c5, which first of all brings this rook into the game, as well as maintain some pressure on this bishop. But let's suppose if white continues with king to f2, trying to get closer so that he can guard this bishop. But here black can also bring his knight to f5, trying to deflect this pawn so that he can capture this bishop. And obviously white can't afford this, so that's why king to e2. And after that he can go for knight to h4. And yeah, basically this move is played because if this, then this. So, but guys, now king to d3. Here white can still go for king to d3. This is because if knight takes c3, now comes rook to f1, pinning this knight. And after suppose knight takes h2, bishop takes f7 check, king to f8. And obviously we cannot give any discover check due to threat of knight takes f1, so that's why rook to f5. And you can see this game will continue like this. Okay, so in the actual game, after the move bishop to d6, okay, so now it's better for black to go for g6 so that he can bring this king to g7, which would be the best square for this king. But instead he made a mistake by going to e8, and that's a mistake because now white can go for this amazing move bishop to d2, asking for rook exchange. And if rook takes c1, bishop takes f7 check, king takes f7, bishop takes c1. And now white is threatening to play bishop e3, which will target this b6 pawn. So if to stop this, bishop to c5, now white can go for h5, stopping the move king to g6. And in the next few moves, this king will go to c4 and then to b5, which will attack these pawns. And by this, clearly you can see this position will be winning for white. Okay, so let me show you a quick variation. Suppose if bishop to d4, king to c4, king to e6, king to b5, bishop to c5, bishop to d2, bishop to d4, now comes b4. And now I think you all understand the move order. Okay, so in the actual game, after the move king to e8, here Kasparov missed this amazing move and he go for rook to g1, attacking this g7 pawn. But black can easily guard this by king to f8, which actually played in this game. Okay, and now rook to b1, preparing for b4, and it's better for black to counter with the move g5. But instead he goes for knight to h8, which is again a mistake, allowing white to push h5, which stops the move knight to g6 and restrict this knight activity. And now it's better for white to go for rook to c1 with the idea of rook to c8 check so that he can give another check from c7 square and grab this knight. But instead here Kasparov decides to bring his king to c4, and that's a mistake because now black can bring his knight to g5, which he actually played in this game, targeting this f3 pawn. Okay, so now the move queen to a3 check is winning for white, but here Kasparov goes for king to c7, preparing for queen to d8 mate. And in this position, Alexander resigned because, as you can see, now black cannot give any further checks to white king. This is your host Bison signing off. Bye bye.